Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. This is a 1980s classic bicycle frame. The bottom bracket has been completely disassembled and cleaned. I finished lubricating the components and I'm ready to assemble it. In this video I'll show you how the components fit together and how the bottom bracket tightness, so that it's neither too loose nor binding, is actually set. So in one of the bearing cups I have already greased up the bearing balls. They look like this. Bury them in grease. I've chosen a thicker type of grease, not a race lubricant. I want this grease to keep these bearing balls in place like this. It's a hot day and the softer grease would drop the balls and the balls would creep out and whatever come out. I want them to stay in place like this. So it's only the viscosity or the friction of the lubricant that's keeping the balls in place. I reverse the bicycle so that front is in that direction, and so this one goes to the drive side and threads in all the way in until it hits the frame. I want to point out the thread is also greased both on the cup and on the bracket, on the frame, because I don't want the steel component to seize the threads to corrode together. This is not a watertight type bearing. Water will trickle in here and will do its corrosive devastation, as well as water will trickle in through here. There are no seals of any kind anywhere, so water will get in here and will do its damage inside. I'm not worried about the actual condition or surface condition or how much out of round or out of spherical the bearing balls are. The bearing balls are easy to replace. If in your market bearing balls are available, go for it. But in terms of amount of rolling friction, corroded bearing balls, pitted or surface deformed bearing balls, or perfectly spherical bearing, which they don't exist, but just go with it, perfectly spherical bearing balls, the amount of rolling friction increase or decrease between the two groups is not a whole lot. So if you're in your market, new components are not available, don't worry about it. Cleaning the components, because it was very nearly seized as was, goes a long way. The shaft has also been cleaned and greased, and at this point I'm lowering my head here, and that's why the camera is not directly in front of the bracket, so I can look through here and I can see all of the bearing balls remain in place. And I'm going to put this drive shaft or this spindle in and give it a little spin and just leave it here for a minute. On the other cup, all the components of course have been cleaned. It's partially greased because it needs more grease to keep the bearing balls effectively in place. They need to be buried a little more. Something like this. Like so. Bury the whole thing. Like so. I'm gonna just spin it a little bit, take it out, visually check it, make sure that they all line up, they are all in place, nice. Place it in there one last time and keep it there kind of horizontal. It's because you can't adjust the placement of the balls now on this side. Oops, it's important that they be staying in place while this is being installed. When it's installed correctly on this cup that I'm spinning, there should be just 3 or so threads showing, just like this. Nice. Just enough for the lock ring. So here in this position, and it's not a problem if the spindle is all greasy, that's fine. You also don't want the crank arms to seize to the tapered surfaces here, because that's also really painful to remove the crank arms that way. So right now it's spinning mighty fine. That's good. Give it quite a few spins, and that spreads the lubricant. I do not want to take it apart and check it by visual inspection. Are all the balls in their correct places? I know if there are 3 rings or 3 threads or so showing here, that the bearing balls have been placed correctly. Also, if there's anything rattling later in the frame, a loose ball, and that's gonna be obvious that one of them will be out of place. So right now I'm just spreading the lubricant out because there's a little play in this. You can hear it. I'm gonna exaggerate it by loosening it by, I don't know, a quarter turn. They're hugely rattly. So let's go. Okay, that's a horizontal position. Let's turn it to 12 o'clock. Less rattly. Let's make it to, if I make it to horizontal again, it begins to bind, and if I turn it even more, which is kind of difficult with greasy hands when without a tool, I can feel it's getting, it has zero play in it whatsoever. So it's good. It's neither binding, and it's just been finger tight like so with greasy hands. So what I need to do now is find the lock ring, which is somewhere here. And the lock ring, which has not been cleaned up too well at all. You can see the rusty surfaces on it, but just for show and tell, I'm gonna put this lock ring on it. The lock ring, of course, everything is fine thread pitch, so how you start the lock ring, where you start this lock ring is critical, so that this be lining up perfectly. Now when you tighten this lock ring on it, the cup might roll ahead, so just be aware of that. There. That's not super tight yet, not binding yet. This lock ring, of course, needs to be, I'm not gonna grab a tool this way, but needs to be tightened, and the excess grease, of course, removed. I'm gonna just walk away from the camera a little bit here and find a rag, which is okay, I'm gonna go with the closest to the camera, this one here. So I'm gonna wipe my hands because they are really greasy, and I'm gonna show you how the pedal, I mean the crank arm with the pedal on it, tightens on this spindle, because this is the drive side here and this is the non-drive side. I'm gonna grab this one, and this is the non-drive side there, and put it on just anywhere, just like so, with excess lubricant, everything on it as is. That's put in place, good enough. This 15mm, sorry, this flanged nut, which needs this 15mm wrench, is going to push it in place as the nut is being tightened. Just set it for tightening. Now, I don't want to tighten it completely because I do want to clean the rust off that surface, but this tightening is going to pull the pedal or the crank arm up on the tapered surface on the spindle into correct position, and usually a plastic trim piece covers this nut to keep it from corroding, plus the grease that's already on it. Same, of course, applies to this drive side. It should be, you know, offset 180 degrees, and the drive side is actually good to go with tightening it. So that's basically how it's fitted, and there should be no play in the system components. And I just want to show you one last thing here. It should be, even with the other side not bolted in, just friction fit on that square tapered shaft. It should be rotating as freely as it does right here, right now. So this is a really good test of checking the fit on the bottom bracket. Thank you very much for watching.